Mainstream mental health is flawed, and I'm pulling back the curtain. I'm Andrea Clark, a former family therapist who walked away from the system to expose the truth. After my own journey from medication maze to holistic healing, I'm here to challenge the status quo and reveal the mental health truths most people don't know. The truth about mental health is your radical roadmap to wellness. Raw stories, expert insights, breakthrough solutions. This is where traditional modalities end and real healing begins. Christa Hardin, MA, is a relationship expert, author, as well as host of the Enneagram Marriage Podcast. Christa has been working with and researching marriage for 2 decades, providing hope for couples struggling to find their light, love, and mission together in any relationship season. Her most recent Amazon best-selling title, The Enneagram Marriage, Your Guide to Thriving Together in Your Unique Pairing, is now available anywhere you can buy books. Christa, welcome. I am so excited for our conversation today.
Thank you so much for having me, Andrea. I'm so excited for all of us to get to chat Enneagram today.
I know. Okay, so before we dive deep into this, I wanted to just share with you guys why I thought Christa would be an incredible fit for what we're talking about. You know, this larger conversation about the truth about mental health and things that are out there that can really heal you and support your mental health and that are not the traditional like talk therapy, medication, like all of these things. And I think that this is a really great fit, especially when we get into the marriage portion of this discussion, understanding who you are. And I took the Enneagram in like 2012 or something. And when I discovered how to think about who I am in that way and how I see the world and approach the world, I felt so understood. And being able to understand how other people see the world and understand the world and how they communicate from that place was a really powerful tool for me personally. And I think that so much of our mental health has to do with our lens and our personality and how we integrate into the world. And if we don't set ourselves up for success by understanding ourselves, and then, obviously nothing can ever be perfectly orchestrated, but putting ourselves in situations that are more aligned with what we need and who we are, that's a huge part of our mental health. And so that is why I wanted to have you on, is that this is another way to look at mental health, relationships, relationship health. And for anybody who, ends up loving this, I know that you have resources, you have a website. So let's dive into that. And let's pretend that not everybody listening knows they might not even know what the Enneagram is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you've been involved in mentoring people through marriage for like 20 years, which is incredible. So you have a lot of experience. Yeah. And I'm curious what made you decide to then bring in the Enneagram to all of that?
It's a great question because I've always loved psychological assessments. Enneagram is defined as an assessment, but it's not just a psychological assessment. It also goes into emotional and spiritual realms, which is what makes it an additionally amazing measure to find out who we are. A lot of people think it's a test. It's not really, although that's a quick way of saying it to people. You could say it's a personality test, but it's much deeper than that. What it does is it helps you find your personality patterns and the motivations and reasons behind those patterns. And then that helps you to find compassion for others who are different from you. That is the biggest game changer of this test versus others. And you even hear me say, we can take tests, but it's going to have to be that if you hear us talking about these 9 types today, which Enneagram means 9 types, basically you'll have to realize that you will probably follow a type pattern, and you can take a test if you want to, and I'll give a link to that. But at the same time, just listening can also help you to know your type even a little bit better sometimes than a test can do, because we take tests in moods, right? We have 4-week cycles, many of us women. And so you want to really look at the core motivations of each of the 9 types before you let a test tell you what you are. So that's a little bit about this measure. And the reason I got into it was after doing all the other psychological assessments, I realized that this one encompassed layers that they missed. even if I put them all together, the Enneagram largely had almost all of that. And in some ways, even more than they all had. So I used to do this thousands of dollars psychological battery when I was in Michigan. And I used to say it's over $1,000, of course, because I'm going to be doing a lot of writing and 20 pages and we're going to be meeting a lot. And this is like 20 years ago. And then realizing the Enneagram type could get me all of that and more just made it so obvious. Like, okay, wait a second. I could do all of this with my clients, get more couples information, help my own marriage, help my family, and consider it just this one number for each of us. Yes, all the way yes.
Yeah, that's really interesting because all of that kind of testing is very expensive. I used to work with psychologists and when I was practicing, and yeah, I mean, it's not inexpensive by any means.
Yes.
And I do think that it's not even all encompassing, if that makes sense, right? It's looking for specific things. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So for people listening who don't know what the Enneagram is, or what the Enneagram numbers mean, like sometimes when I talk to new friends, I'm like, you seem like you might be a 3 or whatever I'll say. Or, I'll say, have you heard of the Enneagram? And they're like, oh yeah, I've heard of it. I think I'm a whatever, right? But they don't really know what that means. So do you mind sharing just a little bit about each type?
Yeah, that sounds great. And that way, if you hear yourself in one or more of these patterns, you can take a deeper dive to investigate it out. So I'll go through some of the core strengths and then a core area of just fear for each type too, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. Whatever you want to share, it's going to be amazing. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited for people to get to know themselves better and their partners or family. Be listening for everybody. And just as that caveat, don't overly type people. We each have to come to our own type. But you could say, I think you should look at type 3 or 9 for yourself and dig a little deeper, read a little bit about it, and see if that's a fit with your friends and family. But you'll know today if I'm reading your mail when I talk about the types. So let's talk about types. We'll just go in order 1 through 9. So type 1 is a perfectionist, or a lot of people prefer the word reformer. Others prefer using the word just actually more than one word. Sometimes to describe themselves are like, I can't be reduced to one word, especially if they're a 1 who's a bit perfectionistic. But I've also really come to enjoy the word refiner because 1s really work well in making the world more beautiful and refining qualities that are missed by others. Yeah. They often feel like they will see the details that everybody else misses. Like my husband's a 1 and we were driving on the road the other day and he got out of the car and I was driving and he's like showing up next to this truck next to us. And my kids and I are like, what are you doing? And he's like, there was nails all over the floor, all over the ground, and everyone was going to hurt their tires. 1s want to do what's good and right. And we're like, okay, this was a safe situation, but be careful. You can't just hop out of your car and get nails off the road. But he was refining that road. He was seeing what was good and right. And that's what 1s do. But their weakness and their failed space that every one of us has, no one is perfect, is they feel like I have to be always right and good. And I can't ever be wrong or bad. And so they tend to not say sorry very often. They tend to have rage deep down for the things they don't say because they're trying to be perfect all the time. I'm sure you know some 1s.
Some of how I've experienced some 1s are like my way or the highway is how it felt. Like there was no other way to do things.
Yeah, it can be very.
And I don't know if that's something that you would say could be a comment, but that was my personal experience is, and I'm somebody who's like, there's a lot of ways that we could do things, right? Like, and it felt like there was some rigidity with that, at least in my experience.
Yes.
In like business and things like that.
Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up because 1s are a very logical type. There's a lot of just different groupings in the Enneagram. That's why I said it's such a robust measure. It's not just these few adjectives I'm sharing today, but it's something you can study and get to know more because there's all these groupings, and 1s are in a logical group. They're also in a culturally compliant group. So within their culture, if they feel like they're right and they're good, and they're making sure that they are checking all those boxes, they're going to have a really strong logical case for themselves. And many of the times they are going to be right, if not most of the time. But sometimes they're wrong. And sometimes, as you said so well, there's more than one way to get to Rome. And so it's good for 1s who are healthier and doing their work to use what we call their arrows, their wings. These are other spots, other personality types that can help them to access more growth points. And for listeners who are new, I don't want to bombard you with that. But I just want everyone to know a healthier type 1 can do that work. So that's something that my husband and many other ones don't struggle with as much as they used to. Although any of them will tell you, yes, we like to be right.
Yes. Yeah. And, there's the way it's like resourceful or unresourceful or healthy or unhealthy. It's like getting to a place where you're tapping into the more healthy pieces of your personality style. And so just as an example, when I first took the test, I was way unresourceful than, I take it, I would say not even once a year, but maybe once every year and a half, 2 years, just to see if I've had any shifts in my resourcefulness. Because the test I take helps with that. It gives you, and every year there's just every time I take it, there's just a smidge of a shift of going from the unresourceful to the more resourceful. And so that's probably, I think it's important, you can step into that more resourceful side of your personality, right, over time through healing and awareness and all of that.
And I will go into 2s now. 2s are the givers or helpers, befrienders. Some people like that name, but ultimately it's somebody who really likes to share their best hospitality and love with their people, especially their chosen people. They don't just give love to everyone, especially as they get healthier and more resourceful. They learn, is this mine to do? And they're able to start asking themselves that and then start setting boundaries. But before they set boundaries, sometimes 2s deal with a large element of pride. I'm the best giver. I have to do it all. And then they can wipe out in their relationships in life or get abused because they're not ever getting back, or they can get manipulative and insist on helping, and that those they help them in the exact same way back. When the 2 learns other people have different gifts than you and they are loving you in their own way, and when they set boundaries and start to get self-care and limit how much helping they do and come into their virtue of humility, there's a lot of beauty and growth and connection, and that's just what they love. They want to be connected more than anything else because they're what we call the heart or the feelings type. So they really love that interconnectedness.
I love that.
Yes, me too. Both of my best friends are 2s, and one of them's a PA in a hospital, and the other one is a foster and adoptive mom, and they're just so sweet. But it's a type that can be so sweet or so treacherous. So I've met some of the others as well, and I kind of run from those. Okay, all right. So 3s. 3s are achievers, performers. They're so good at showing the world their glamour and glitz. There's so many in Hollywood. One I know who follows my account on Instagram, and I've been on her podcast, is Zuri Hall. She just hosted the Academy Awards. She is impeccably dressed at all times, and she is a classic 3. She has shared when I was on her podcast, she does go to those other arrows and spaces I mentioned and just totally rest and get chill. But the world doesn't always see that side of her, and we just see her as looking polished. But what happens in relationships when 3s don't save anything for their family and friends, and they're so good at being polished, is their family and friends start to get resentful, like, hey, you're showing up so big over here and you're glitzing and glamming at work. You're the CFO, whatever you are, you're working, traveling a lot. There's a lot of research I've done where they're like, 3s are so hard when their partner gets pregnant, they leave, or they deal with more infidelity because when you're performing all the time, you're wearing a lot of masks. So it's an important type to look at and say, can I be my authentic self? Just like I gave tips for the 1 and 2, the 3 has to stop, slow down, and become present with who they are, even when they're not achieving or performing, and stop wearing all the masks and come clean about what they want and need. They can be also very codependent like 2s because they're also heart types. And so deep down, even though they're presenting so big and brash and beautiful, they also really want love deeply. And that's more important to them usually than being right. Whereas type 1 wants to be right and good. They want to be loved just like type 2s. So if you're that 3, you'll know what I'm talking about. And coming into your authenticity is very important. So people can trust you and you can find that love you want.
I love that. That's my husband's a 3.
You did that.
For a long time, he thought he was a 4, but actually through getting a lot of healing and more clarity, he's like, no, I really resonate with being a 3 wing 4, like not a 4 wing 3.
You found that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about 4s.
Yes. So your hubby has some 3 and some 4.
Yes.
And 4 is such a magical type. They're so winsome, artistic. People would say that the artist, the creative, some people would say the individualist. But again, the depth of the 4 is this melancholy space that can go deep with people and create art, and they see the world in textures and colors and shades. I know my eldest daughter, who's in her senior year of psychology studies in college, she is a dancer and a fine artist, and she's a musician and everything art for our force, but they don't always present it that way. She does all those things plus graphic design and others, but some of them are just great orators. Some of them are great actors. It's just the passion is deep and it's there. And that's a part probably that you resonate with because 8s are very passionate as well. So you love his 4 part of him.
He can hang with me. And when we started dating, I was like, oh my gosh, because he's my second marriage. And when we started dating, I felt like I've never experienced somebody in my whole life who can hang with these deep conversations that I like to have. I mean, I'm intense. We were on the phone for like 6 hours talking about, we went all over the place. And I'm like, who is this person? Like, I've never, you know what I mean? It was a really incredible experience. And to this, I mean, we've been married 8 years, and he can always hang with,
oh my God.
And he's got that depth too, but like we can go anywhere in conversation together. Like it's really cool. Like nothing's weird or too intense or off the table. And it's so incredible.
Oh my gosh. That just gives so many people listening hope for themselves if they're between a relationship, to know that if that sounds good to you, that is available in this, you have to find match you. You have that. And then there's others listening like, oh no, I don't want that intensity. And so they,
and we wouldn't be married,
Yeah. 4, you better be ready for it. 8, you better be ready for it. 6, we'll talk about that. But here we are in that 4 space. And when they learn to get doing, when 4s, of course, your 3 husband's going to be a doer, but like anyone who's a 4 first, they can get very stuck in not doing. And they really appreciate partnerships and family who can get them moving out of their artistry sometimes and just into doing. So I love that.
That's actually been part of our journey, is that him getting more moving and not because 4s are a little bit perfectionistic too.
Yeah, they go to the one perfectionist, one of their first arrow they go to.
So my 8, is like, listen, just
do it.
You have to have a little bit of a plan, and then you build it as you go. Like it's and me being supportive though has helped him be able to lean into that more and prove to himself that it's true, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. So you're like, I get that from him, and then he gets that from me.
Yeah.
So our 5s, so a 4 would have a 5 wing. So we're moving along, and you can see how it goes, that you have wings on both sides of you. Like a 4 would have a 3 wing and a 5 wing, because we relate to the sides around us. It's a circular picture if you've ever seen the Enneagram personalities. But anyway, the 5 has some of these deep traits, being so close to the 4, but they also begin our talk into the thinking center, the head types versus the heart types. And so the 5 is really a type to be called the researcher, the innovator. Sometimes they're also known for just coming back and observing, and that's why some people like to call them the observer. But really, 5s like to know things. They need to know things. They like control because they feel like if they run out of energy, they could die. That's the emotional fear of, okay, this is why I'm so logical and grounded in my research and want to know everything, and also pull back, because most of them are introverted, because I have to conserve energy. And a lot of their energy goes into thinking, and they just choose to use it on research. And then by the time they kind of burnt their brains off, it's like head on a stick kind of moment all day. And then they're like, I'm so tired. And then their partner sometimes is like, oh my gosh, where are you? But they're all the time planning and plotting and trying to protect in other ways. When you see that beautiful heart of a 5, they're not that far from type 8s and 2, and that they're very loving and helpful toward others. They're in one of their groupings with 8s and 2s for that reason, but they're very much going to do that from a more reserved standpoint. Can I help you? Can I show you I love you? But can I also preserve my energy? So If you're a 5, you very much know that. And if you're with a 5, I hope that helps you to feel loved.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our 6s, as we continue the thinking center, are really good at troubleshooting. They're called the troubleshooter by some, the loyalist by some. They're also sometimes called a befriender like type 2 because they're so loyal to their friends. But they're also given the name of the skeptic, the devil's advocate. This is a type that has contradictions even within its type. There's both the fearful 6, because the 6 struggles with fear, as well as the counter fearful. That's called the phobic 6 versus the counterphobic 6. So you might sometimes see a little CP after the word 6. And this is the 6 that's a little more like the 8, which we'll talk about soon, your type, that's a little more powerful. Whereas the phobic 6 is more gentle scared, like that scared bunny sort of image that you might have. And like, oh my gosh, I need my people. And oh my gosh, I'm analyzing everything and I'm troubleshooting. But 6s are so good to their people because they're like, we have to take care of you. We have to make sure we plan for everything. And they're excellent at making sure everyone has everything they need. I had a 6 mom call me the other day, have your child wear a coat because it's cold today. Like they have everybody's back that they care about. And they're also a reactive, passionate type like 4 and 8. So they are very passionate. Now, again, if they're the counterphobic 6, instead of reacting to fear with kind of a cowardice, they will react with an attack, a counterattack. So it's important to know if they're a counterphobic 6, you're going to see, yes, I am afraid, but what I do with that fear is very different from the other 6s. So I had a client present it once. She was on my Instagram. I think she still is, and my little 6 highlight, but she shows herself in her like angel sweet outfit for her phobic side. And then she shows herself in her black dress and she's all batty and she's in her counterphobic mode.
I love it. And okay, so for people who are listening or watching who are kind of like, well, there's like these nuances within.
Yeah.
Would you say that how these things are specified has to do with life experiences and how we're shaped? Is that how would you frame that?
I would say that we're each born. I think we're still so much in the learning space with this, but what we seem to see is that we all have some epigenetics at play, that we have certain traits that are sort of baked in from ancestry, from family patterns. And we even have these instincts I'm not going to talk about today, but they're another favorite part of the Enneagram, self-pres, sexual, and social. And it's like this deep brain work for each of us that is so baked in by the time we even arrive on the planet and start working within our families because they teach us how to survive in certain ways. But I also think that each of us just has our own unique genome that is completely unique to us. We have so much evidence for this. So part of your personality is just you already. But when we were talking earlier about like people who aren't very resourced versus people who are, sometimes, as you heard me say and joke about 2s earlier, my best friends and then also the worst, sometimes we get a little judgy because we're like, oh, they're not healthy. And we forget that we can be a little healthier when we have more privilege in the world. So it's helpful for us to stop judging so much. And it's a regular practice to do that. But yeah, you asked a great question. The nuances are there because of both the relationship we have to our environment and to our own personality.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So now going on to type 7, that is the enthusiast. It's a joyful type, also called the Epicurean. 7s love new things. We're kinetic learners. That's my type. We love moving at all times. We love thinking. We're also in that thinking group with the 5s and 6s. But one thing that stops us is pain. We don't like pain. We don't like emotional pain. We don't like physical pain. People say it's emotional. I'm like, no, we don't like physical pain either.
Yeah.
But it's pain, right? Pain is hard. And so sometimes we do what's called an emotional bypass to get out of pain. And we do it by thinking and doing. We have that 8 wing next to us. We use it a lot to keep going. And then we have that thinking. So we'll use that to get ourselves out of trouble. And it just keeps us going in a lot of ways. Some of us get through our 30s even or early is to that point. I know that was my experience. And then we burn out because we need rest.
Yeah.
And so something that 7s have to learn over time is to utilize their what's called the 5 space because, like I said, different arrows. But in general, if you're like just learning about the types today, 7s just need to understand that pain will help them to be a deeper, richer person. They're always going to be spunky and full of energy on the off moments, but like to make sure that you have also those on moments where the emotions are there, you're aware of your walls and you start to bring them down instead of just withdrawing withdrawing into fun or your own doing and kinetic stuff. Like you could say, I'm done. I don't want to talk anymore. And you go read or you go on a run, and just instead saying like, I'm going to let myself sit here with these hard emotions. I'm going to allow some tears. These are such good moves for the 7. And then you come back to your people so much more truly joyful.
I love 7s.
I'm so glad. Yay.
I love 7s.
We love our 8.
And then the beloved 8s.
Yes, we have 8 and 9 to cover. So if you haven't heard about yourself, these are like 2 of the top. I think these are probably the 2 most popular types because
Really?
I sell a lot more brochures for 8s and 9s than any other type. And when I see statistics, I see a few more here. Just like type 1, 8s and 9s, I'll talk about 8s first, of course, but are body or gut centered types. So they're not the heart types. They're not the head types. They're body or gut centered types, which means you guys feel things on instinct. And so you're like, I have a gut knowing about that person and about what's right and wrong. And so 8s are very justice oriented. And they're like, I am strong. I know I'm strong. I'm not super fearful. I'm powerful. They're called the powerful one or the defender. I love the word protector. They're often called the challenger, but I love defender and protector because it shows the big, huge heartedness of the 8. They often have this hard exterior, and yet on the inside is this soft, gooey marshmallow center with a huge heart.
So soft and gooey in here.
For the underdog, you have so much love for underdogs. I have 2 girls I used to mentor. I still do. They're college students now, but my daughter's friends and my friends now too as they get older. And I had a weird situation come up on Instagram recently. And I told one of them about it, and she was like, don't ever meet with her on your own. You need a backup girl. And like whenever I go jogging, she's always like, you need to have something with you like Mace. Like 8s are so protector, even from when they're kids. So it's just so beautiful to see. You guys can be strong, stoic, powerful. And it's a beautiful thing. Now, again, because of this, sometimes people are like, that's a bit abrasive. And so, of course, I already had 2 sessions with 8s today. And without going into their personal details, sometimes their partnerships are like, I need to know that you're safe. I need to know that I can trust you with my feelings and that you won't bombard me. So there's a work for them to learn as they soften and show their strength, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So we all have that reading of our mail, even you and me as we go through.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And last but not least are 9s. 9s, if you were to look at that circular diagram of the Enneagram I mentioned, 9s sit at the very top. 8s and 1s are near the top with them. Remember, I said these are justice-oriented types. They're kind of the Supreme Court of the Enneagram. And they're like, okay, I know what's right. And 9s, being peacemakers, another word for them is mediators, they actually have a great view from the top, if you were to look at it that way, of every type. So 9s say to us, I relate with every type. And this might be you if you're like, I have not found my type yet, because 9s are able to merge with every type. They just sit in the experience. Oh, I get you. You're a 3. I get you. You're a 2. I get you. You're a 1. And then they also forget themselves in that space sometimes, and they forget to show up, and they can be, instead of that kinetic learner I described as the 7 and the 8, they're much more of the potential energy. And so when you can find your power as a 9, which is really a beautiful gift of 9, it is absolutely glorious, and they become leaders. They usually find a right action. I know my second daughter is a 9, and she truly finds such joy in correcting her professors. And I'm always like, oh my gosh, you're yelling at another professor. She's like, oh no, I'm being nice about it, but they're wrong, Mom. And I'm like, I love that you're awake as a 9. So don't think 9s, if you're listening, that you have to be quiet and meek. You can become very powerful and very sweet and kind to others, both. It's not one or the other, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So those are the 9 types. And I hope everybody's been finding themselves in this.
Yes. I'm so excited to get feedback from this. If you have a neurodivergent or sensitive kiddo who experiences big emotions and are looking for a way to help them decompress, get grounded, and self-regulate, you've got to check out Outtree. As a therapist and mom, it's my go-to for sensory soothing tools. My daughter loves their sensory swing. After a long day at school, it's her favorite for relaxing and getting focused. It's a safe space to down-regulate her nervous system. You can find the perfect sensory tool for your kiddo and family at Outtree.com. OUTREE.com. Use my code MHM for 24% off. You can also check the show notes for the link. Okay, so in regards to relationships, let's talk about that. You know, the different the different types and relationships.
Yeah, I'd love to. I think it may be helpful to look at the triads, which there's a lot of groups of 3 called triads, but you probably know the centers of intelligence. I sort of marked them out. How do you feel about talking about relationships through the lens of the heart types, the head types, and the body types?
Perfect.
Okay, awesome. Because that way you guys are starting to hear, okay, this is me, this is my partner. Sometimes you'll find a double couple where you're both heart types or head types or body types, but more often than not, you find yourselves like you two. You have a body type and you have a heart type, and that's pretty cool. So I'll just remind you that the 8s, 9s, and 1s are those body gut types. Then the 5s, 6s, and 7s are the thinking or head types. And then the 2s, 3s, and 4s are the heart or the feelings types. And so each of these groups has a way that they process information as it comes to them about the relationship. Yeah. So if you're thinking about what to do on a date night, then the 8, 9, or 1 is like, oh, I experience the world through my instincts and surroundings, and I'm such a 5 senses type. I want to do something that really saturates our experiences together and that we can really feel our bodies. Yes. And the 2, 3, and 4 are like, I want to make sure we're connecting. Like, I feel important to you, that I am showing up as you want to be proud of me because you think I'm special. And they want attention, a lot of attention. Mm-hmm. And then the thinking type is like, okay, I want to make sure that we're having safety in whatever we do. I want to be in charge of that because I'm really good at planning for safety. And so you might even see a type 7 like me and think they're not safe. They're all these adventurous and Epicurean, but their planning fixation leads them to say, I won't try it unless I think it's safe. So they may be more daring, but they're still going within their own safety parameters. So all these types come at a relationship with either safety or this deep desire for emotional connection, or the deep, rich experience of the 5 senses. Is that relatable to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I went to a bingo rave this last week.
Oh gosh, what an experience.
Well, I said to I work from home and I'm not an introvert at all. Like I'm an 8-wing 7, but yeah, I'm in my maturity and aging, getting older. I'm like more protective of my energy.
Yeah.
But I would say every once in a while, I'm just like, I need an immersive, sensory, visceral experience.
I love that answer.
And so I told my girlfriends, I'm like, there's this bingo rave, like it's a couple hours, right? It's nothing crazy. I'm like, I need an experience. Like I'm due for it was loud and it was vibrating and we were dancing and there were lights. And I was like, it was so good for me because I like to blast music in the car. I like intensity that, you know what I mean? And so the way you describe that, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, absolutely.
Oh my gosh. And it's like you guys are 8s, 9s, and 1s. And like I said, those are very common types. So a lot of us have a partner in this space or are this person. Mm-hmm. Like they're so focused on the outer world most of the time that like, say I'm talking to my husband on a walk, which we do almost every night. And I just want to talk about my day. I'm in my head as a thinking type and he's really aware of what's happening. Oh my gosh, look at the stars. Do you see that lake? And I used to feel like he wasn't listening to me before I knew the Enneagram. And then I was like, he's a 5 senses person. He's wondering why I'm not able to see all this.
Yeah.
It really helps us. And I'm like, actually, I love it because here I can be, like you said, anyone working online, we can become that head on a stick. You can go to your 5 space. I can do the same. And it's like when we are in that body center, which all of us have access to, by the way, we can be brought out by our partners into these other spaces. Or maybe we're with a heart type and they help us to bring that emotional center that you and me talked about. We both have. Yours is that ooey gooey center and mine is a little farther and harder to reach, but we both have them. And we need our heart types to bring us back there. So we all really have a gift to give each other.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Do you find that certain combos are more challenging than others? Or I think about resourcefulness or being healthier?
It's definitely about resourcefulness. I feel like about 80% of people struggle at some level with their partners, whereas about 20% will just say, oh my gosh, our partnership is almost perfect, but we work really hard for it. So, and that can run the gamut of any of the 45 types like paired together. Cause there's 9 types, but they make 45 different possible combos, which I talk about in my book. But the truth is, I think 8s and 1s together are particularly bold and brash. And so when they come together, like you said, a lot of 1s will come up with extremely intense feelings, powerful. And then so will 8s. And then they both often have a helper part of them that wants to help the other. And then often because body types like yourself like autonomy, they're both also like, get off me. I've got this.
I don't want to be helped unless I ask. I'm like, thank you. I didn't ask for your help, but I've learned how to be really kind in my response. Where I'm like, okay, thank you for that. I didn't ask for your help right now, but I appreciate your effort. But when I do want help, I am 1000% open to it because I've invited it in. So I'm just like, yes, please. Like I asked for it, right? So I'm open. It's very interesting. But yes, I do not. If you're trying to help me when I did not ask for help, it is not good news.
Right, exactly. And so I've seen all the combos like hit bad walls. Like I've seen 7 and 6 both thrive. And it's like so hard to say that when I can see an 8-1 couple who is like one of my model couples and they like healed and are just so beautiful.
Yeah, totally.
Actually 2 couples like that. But then I'm also thinking 7 and 6, same. I can see several that are just absolutely thriving, but others who aren't as much either able or willing to do their work that are just like, oh my gosh, we're so analytical that we take each other down. And one of my friends, Heather, was on my podcast. She's a 6 and she just said it well. She's like, we can go all the way up together. Her and her husband sing with Sarah Brightman. They're just amazing together. And then she's like, and we can completely unravel and go totally analytical down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So I think that when you get people that are like so similar, like we're hearing 8 and 1, both body types, or 6 and 7, both thinking types. Lastly, same thing for 2 heart types. I have somebody I'm trying to unravel from an affair right now, and it's 2 heart types together. And it's like the codependency there is so tough because they're like, oh, I'm depending on you for everything. I'm depending on you for everything. And it's very toxic. They're addicted together.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So sometimes you have to watch for those double pairings.
So what in your work? So it sounds like you work with couples, but maybe also individuals.
Yes, I do both, but it's usually relationship based.
Okay. So how do you, coming at it from the Enneagram angle, what does that work look like then?
Well, I come from the therapeutic space. So I started my journey with my master's of clinical psychology in the marriage and family therapy space, as well as the master's level psychology space. So between all the assessments, family systems material, I started looking at people from what's the easiest solution to help you with to the most intense. First, we start with the easiest. Of course, as you heard me say earlier, Enneagram helped me immensely with this because sometimes it's just a quick thing, whether it's, oh, I just found out you're a 3 and you're a heart type. I just need to show you more attention. And I found out you're an 8 and you want direct communication. And then we're good to go. But sometimes we find, like I said, that there's these really complex codependent layers and people need more time. So I try to solve things as I used to do without the Enneagram, still the simplest and easiest solutions first. And then if I see that people have layered issues and depths and wounds that go deeper, I use my therapeutic lens to help them to get to those things too. Now, I don't use any kind of medication or anything like that. It's just all of us doing our work together. And I, of course, know sometimes people need additional care. And when they need EMDR for trauma care, I have 2 of my staff members. I also own a local counseling center and they will take them and do that as well.
That's awesome. Okay. So bringing up trauma.
Mm-hmm.
How does trauma potentially affect each personality type? That might be a loaded question, or maybe not a fully answerable question, but I'm just wondering if it can really so I know for me, I can speak for myself.
Yeah.
I experienced a lot of trauma growing up. And I feel that it really pushed that protector side of me, that protector piece of me. I mean, I've had to really work on doing a lot of healing and rewiring around fighting for people who who really don't even want me to fight for them or aren't receiving it but it was just like, I just had to fight for everybody who couldn't fight for themselves, or you know what I mean? And whereas I've really worked on that and I'm still working on that, and that caused a lot of problems in my lifetime, right? Yeah. And I didn't even realize that I was doing that for a long time.
Yeah.
And I know that some of that comes from my trauma, right? And so I'm just wondering your thoughts around that piece.
Yeah. Well, I love that you were so vulnerable and sharing, because 8s actually, when they're healthier, get vulnerable, but that's their number one thing they don't do when they're not healthy. So you can already see you're resourcing at work. Good job.
Yeah, thanks.
I love that. But definitely each type goes into their unhealthy levels when they are still living out of that trauma cycle. So we all have trauma, especially we've kind of differentiated between big T, huge trauma, and little t trauma. Everyone on this side of Eden has some trauma that's at least a little bit. But when we're living in that still, again, I'm considering privilege for many who can get therapy, etc. That's healthy or good modules. Without necessarily diagnostics, just, hey, you're in your type 3. Let's look at the depths here. Those people who are doing their work, who have social support, who are getting fitness, who have financial resourcing, who are actually putting the work in, they can work around some of these pieces by saying, okay, I see things rising up in me. I'm noticing the worst traits coming up in me, and I'm paying attention to it so I can transition. And I had a moment like that with my kids today, where we had my second daughter's graduating, and we had booked her trip she's wanted since she was 10, a trip to Europe. And it was so exciting. We did it this morning, and I was so happy. And then she was asking me like 50 other questions, and I hit my unhealthy. And I probably hit some trauma of my own childhood of like, this would have been something I would have sat on for days. And I just was like, I need a minute. And she was like, I'm so sorry. And she's a 9, like I said. And I was stern. I was too stern.
Right.
She was just joyful. And I was like, I'm sorry. And that was a moment when I could say the trauma had risen up, and that I just allowed myself to see. For 7s, we go to the negative type 1 perfectionist space. So I was like, I'm so sorry that I was critical. And she's like, no, you're good. It was very small. Now, if you're not mindful, you're not doing your work, you might just be like running with that. Like, how dare you? And you could become abusive. When my other daughter was little, I used to run so hard at her in that negative 1 space. I would just, not knowing the Enneagram and not working with it yet, and being flooded with toddlers and clients who are cutting themselves and doing way too much and not realizing how my 7 type personality worked. I just would give her too much of my stress. So I feel like anyone listening who's like, yeah, I'm learning my type and I have a lot of trauma, know that you can start identifying your patterns. Once in a while, you'll have to still apologize like I did, but you're going to get there a lot faster before you keep traumatizing others, before you yourself. And you can instead say, what are my self-soothing tools? How can I allow myself to have care and compassion? And this goes for not just me, but my family and my partnerships, because we're all doing our best. And have you noticed that that's just been such a gift to you when you slow down and do your work like that?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And, you know, when you said slow down and use your tools, the thing I love about the Enneagram is it helps you realize what your tools are.
It is.
Because my tools are very different than my spouse's tools.
It's true.
Because we are driven by completely different things. So that has been very powerful for me in my healing journey and becoming more healthy and being able to be completely vulnerable with my spouse on a very deep level. And is that, you know, I have my own tools. He has his own tools. And I need different. And as he started to understand that I need different things than he needs, like that really helped both of us have more space to become even healthier, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's been really powerful.
It's powerful. And then what happens is, I call it your Enneagram glow. I don't know if you saw that on any of my materials, but my friends and I, Michael Shahan, who's a therapist in the space and an artist.
Yes, I follow him. He's awesome.
Yes. So we coined the term Enneagram glow because I was noticing in my practices with couples that were of the same pairing, like a lot of 5-2s at this time. And I kept seeing 5 males with 2 females. I was like, these females are becoming more centralized with being able to introvert. Stop. They're not helping excessively anymore. And the 5s are becoming better at being in the world and helping. And it was like they were really shining together in their gifts. And that's what I call the Enneagram glow. Each of us emits our own light. And when we're together, we have a shared light and a new vision we cast. And Wes and I, as a 1-7 pairing, we're really good at he's good at bringing goodness. I'm good at bringing joy. And we've always brought that goodness and joy to children. And it's like, we just are like really good with kids. And so we always have a lot of kids who want to come over to our house each day and week. And we just love it. It's such a fit for us. And that's going to change per season of life. We have other gifts. I'm sure you guys do too. But I love to help people to find their gifts together to see how they glow. And then I use the analogy of your shadows and throwing shade at each other when you're not healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
In particular ways.
And it might be too much to go into this in this episode, but I would be curious when you say, the shadows are throwing shade at each other. Are there key things for each type to look out for with that in a relationship? Or do you feel like that's too depthful for this particular conversation?
I think that when you go through any of my resources, you can see it more fully, but we could do a quick run through.
Let's do a quick.
Give a little.
Yeah, you guys have to. I'm obsessed with your profile.
Thank you.
It's really amazing. It's just the amount of detail and care you give to your carousels and the way that you explain things. It's really powerful.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I am a 7-4-9 tri-type, and my daughters that help me run my account are a 4-7-9. So she's like almost exactly same with me. Here are a few patterns of our tri-type. We've expanded and gone way deeper. And then my other daughter is a 9-3-7. So she brings in that your husband's like achiever. And she always tells us like, oh, this is the trend right now. So I'm glad it comes through. Yes. Yay. But if we're in our trauma spaces, if we're in our shadows throwing shade, here's what it can look like. For the type 1, they can get very judgy and critical toward their spouse. When their spouse finally kind of confronts them about something, they've been probably stewing on 20 things, maybe 1,000. I had a guy tell me that not long ago. And he's like, the one thing I mentioned, trust me, there's 1,000 more. So 1s hold on to a lot of resentment, and that can become addictive and a fixation for them. For 2s, they can give to get. And when they're at their worst, it can become insidiously manipulative, where they're smothering others and making them feel like they owe them and that they have to give them first allegiance and give them top honors. And that can be really hard. For instance, if like maybe you've come from a family with a 2 mom, like classic Italian mom sort of trope, or Jewish mom trope, even though we know we don't want to ever out-group or in-group. It's like these tropes you see in the media might be where 2 could go wrong to say, okay, I am overly hovering. I'm not giving you any space. And I think moms of every culture traditionally can do this, or dads, helicopter parents in general. And even a 2 parent who's a spouse, their spouse can feel very left out because they're like, once the kids came along, you stopped caring about me. So that's how the toxicity can show up for a 2. Mm-hmm. For a 3, the toxicity usually shows up, as I said, in the virtuoso coming out to give a tutorial on this flashy, beautiful way of shining in the world. They're so shiny, but then at home, literally deadpan, laying down flat on the ground, don't care, not moving. It's not genuine. What you were out here is not who you are at home, or masking a bunch of different ways because they didn't resource or save at home. And that's always hard for their partner and family.
Yeah.
The 4 is, you're like, yes.
That's something we're working on. As my husband is like launching his own business, and I'm like, there has to be some left for us. Like, I know I'm so excited for these achievements. You have to leave a little left for us, right? You have to,
Yes. And they love when their partner can partner with them a little on it too. If they're not like, they're like, I need the attention too, because I am a heart type. But like, if you can help me, then I can get back to you guys sooner.
Yes.
But that is so key. And then the 4, when they're at their worst, their envy is huge. I mentioned the artistry of the 4, but they can like fall into these pockets and corners of addiction from their envy and just feel so bad about themselves and like they don't matter. They're not worth anything. Again, that codependency of a heart type, and can make them not be able to get up out of bed. And of course, all these things need assessments on multiple levels. But if you know you're a 4, like we said, doing is so key, and really gratitude is key for what you have because the grass is not greener on the other side. If you're a 5 and you're toxic to your spouse, there's that underlying belief I mentioned of like, I'll never have enough energy. And so they usually withhold and they don't tell their partners how much they love them. They may once in a while, but it feels so costly to give out emotions. Instead, there's so much more in their thinking and their partner's like, you're so resourcing, you're so greedy for your resources of time and money, usually both, that I feel very unloved. And they're often so nervous that they're like, I was trying to save it all for us, but the partnership misses out because of the excessive saving when they forget that synergy blesses them. For the 6, it's usually the planning gets over the top and it takes the place of the intimacy and fun. And the partner feels like I lost you at some point along the way and you're no longer fun. You're just a worrywart and you're just filled with fear or attack and there's no rest with you. It's just all worry and planning. For the 7, it's the running amok. Like I said, not in the helpful way as a 2. Unfortunately, us 7s tend to run amok in our own wild ways because we feel like we've been carrying it for everybody all the time. So we work hard. You kind of heard me blow up at my daughter. It was a gentle blow up this time, but it was still like I'm doing everything, that feeling. And so we get a bit perfectionistic, but we also get very isolating to others because we're like, I need to go get my pleasure because I've been working so hard. So we can leave others out and just tune others out, whether we're skiing or going jogging or looking at nature for wonder, like just getting too self-involved in order to replenish ourselves versus realizing that other people are going to be part of healing us and the heart center will be important to come back to and just be honest, like, hey, I'm having a sad moment. Can you help me? That's a huge question. Okay. So 8s, when they're not healthy, can come across as that general. That's what I've already heard, like I said, from a couple clients this morning, just, okay, I come off as too harsh, too strong, too almost like bullying and have to come back and say, I'm sorry that I came off this way. It was definitely out of love, but I was demanding and I wasn't in the relationship. I was over the relationship. So when they get healthier, they start to open up that vulnerability and come back to their childhood virtue of innocence. And they start to open hands to God, open hands to fate, instead of planning that they have to deal with all the justice themselves. They come away from their vengeance that they otherwise feel like they have to do, like the avenger part of them. Mm-hmm. And then the 9s are also avengers and justice fighters. Just people don't know it because they're more passive aggressive about it. So when they finally start digesting and getting into some body work, such as massages, daily brisk walks, otherwise they start to wake up to, I have a lot of anger too, just like 1s and 8s. And I'm a justice fighter and I also have to voice myself. And once I get that wake up call, I won't be like this. But until they do, they can be very passive aggressive. And if you don't think a 9 can run the show with their passive aggressiveness, you don't know a 9. Or don't have one in your family because stubbornness can run a show too. So these are all values.
Some intimate friendships with 9s. So yes, you get it.
If they don't want to do something, you're going to find out.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Yeah, those are just one way we can all go south. There's a few others.
Yeah. So I think, thank you for sharing that because I think it's important just to hear that how, our type, our personality, we have these unresourceful or unhealthy sides of us, and they really can affect our relationships. And how people experience us. And so it sounds like you do some really incredible work with couples around understanding that and creating more harmony in their marriages.
Thank you so much. It's my joy. I love to problem solve and I love to see people come into that healthy, safe space together. So yes, that's exactly what I love to do.
Incredible. So, okay, you have a book.
Yes. I do.
Yes, please.
The Enneagram in Marriage is right here. Is it holding up? Can you see it? Okay, great. And I have other books as well, but I chose to write this one when I started my account because I knew that I wanted to not self-publish this book, but get it out in a bigger way. And I'm so glad I did. My other books I just created for my clients and then this one I really put out there because I was like, this is a topic everyone needs. We've been overly analyzed in other ways that aren't as helpful. Let's get us back to just some core patterns to work on. We're not diagnosing anybody. We're just allowing you to see these core patterns. So in the book is most of what we talked about today and so much more about each pairing.
I love that. Okay. So, and your book is going to be linked in the show notes.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm really excited about that. And then if a couple wanted to work with you, are you taking new clients currently?
I am, especially as we come up to summer. We're in 2025. So vary during different times when they're hearing, but go to enneagramandmarriage.com and I have my whole work up there. I also have a bunch of affiliate coaches I've trained as well, but I love the work. So yes, check on me because I would love to see you.
Okay, awesome. So I'm excited. All of Chris's links are going to be in the show notes. And if this is something that you have never, like the Enneagram is something you've never heard of and you're very curious, I encourage you to go check out her profile and follow her and dive in. I've done a lot of personality assessments as well. I practiced as a family therapist for 13 years and the Enneagram is by far my favorite because at least for me, yes, it helped me understand myself, but it really helps me understand other people in a way that is digestible.
Yes.
And so I feel that having this tool allowed me, I mentor women, allowed me to mentor my mentees better and really give them what they need versus because as in my program, I'm like, listen, this is just how this is the solution. Like, let's just do it. It's going to work. Right. Like, that's my personality, but understanding like everybody processes differently. They see the world differently. They have different core fears and drivers. And that really has helped me be a better mentor and just a better friend and even wife. And so I encourage you just to at least explore this. And then if it's not for you, great. But I'm telling you guys, it is amazing. And at least explore it for understanding yourself and potentially enhancing your relationships and stuff. So thank you for being on. I'm really excited. Congratulations on your book. And I'm excited for people to get your resources into their hands.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. I have so many freebies, also so many podcasts. You're an amazing host.
Thanks.
Thoughtful, fun questions. You obviously care so deeply about this topic, but also your listeners. I can just see that huge love.
Oh, thank you you just gave me chills. This is like such an important mission for me. Like it is really... Oh, it's so important. It makes me emotional for people to really understand there's so many resources out there that are not just what mainstream says, because mainstream has historically, I'm not saying 100%, but been very harmful.
Yes.
And that's part of my personal story. And so I'm like, if somebody wants to know that there are other things out there, but they don't know what it is, this is the core mission of this podcast. And so I'm just so thankful that you said that and that now you're a part of it.
Yes. Thank you so much. I'm right there with you. We don't want to pathologize anybody. We all have things to work on.
Yes.
Your work is beautiful. I'm so glad.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I'm just really excited for everybody to hear this.
So glad. Thank you.
I am eternally grateful you tuned into The Truth About Mental Health. If this message matters to you, please spread the word by subscribing, leaving a 5-star review, and sharing with someone who needs this knowledge. Let's keep reclaiming our mental health together.